The most rebellious thing you could do is to be a dreamer in these days because no one is, and everyone's given up on it.
There is a risk that if you are going to be that rebel, you aren't going to be like. How do you teach people to embrace their uniqueness?
Part of rebelling is sometimes we're rebelling against the dreams we once had for ourselves. So maybe it's not even rebelling against other people's vision for our lives. It's our own previous vision because we've just changed a bit and we've evolved a bit. And our dreams evolve sometimes too. And you have to give yourself the permission to stay in touch with, like, well, what is my dream now? And are you willing to risk rejection, judgment? You have to deal with the fact that people are going to judge you. And it's like, that's why people don't change until they're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
What do you say to those people who even get turned off about dreaming? What if my dreams aren't big enough?
Well,
hey loves, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are tuning into this. It helps grow the show more than you know. Thank you so much again and enjoy.
You have this gorgeous baby right here. Rebel.
Yes, not an actual baby. I'm past the baby phase, so.
Your children are what, teenagers?
Yeah, I have two teenage daughters now. So yes, you said baby, and I was like, wait, I don't have another baby. No.
Do I have another one somewhere?
I don't.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with the title of your new book, Rebel, Find Yourself by Not Following the Crowd. How timely is this right now in the grand scheme of everything?
Oh man, I'm grateful that it's coming out. Yeah, right now. I think people are sick and tired of being boxed in, you know, whether it's the path that your parents said you have to follow, like this is what you're going to do, or this is the expectations we have for you, or even our friend groups or the communities we run in, or just the culture at large. Like there's people want to put everyone in a box. Yep. And I think the idea when we're talking about rebel, I don't know what comes up in your mind or the listener's mind when they hear the word rebel, but the idea is, hey, it's not about you being bad, different, breaking the law, like for the sake of being like a James Dean, like rebel without a cause. Like that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, hey, if everyone's going one way, do you like where they're ending up? That's conformity. What would it look like to actually step out of the river that we're all flowing in and just ask yourself, where do I want to end up in my relationships, in my health, in my finances, in the way I think about work or business or career? And it's actually rebellious to do things differently than the crowd, but that's the only way to figure out how you're wired and how you want to show up. And so I think we should all become little mini rebels in our own little world.
When did you get that pull that you wanted to be, that you were a rebel, that you didn't want to conform? Because I know you've created multiple different multi-7-figure businesses, and you've kind of now built such a huge following for helping people think differently. So when did that come about for you?
Yeah, I think I've always been different, but you don't realize it till you bump up against conformity. I remember for me distinctly in high school, senior year, the guidance counselor asking me to come into her office, and she sat me down and she said, hey, I just wanted to check up with you and see how the college application process was going. And I remember that conversation, and I remember I was informed I was the only person in my class who had not applied to a college yet. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to go to college because I'm going to be a rock star. And you don't need to go to college for that. So I was just like sort of matter of fact telling her my dream and the trajectory I was on. I'm like, I'm writing songs. I'm going to make a record. And you could just see like the color drop out of her face and like the atmosphere shift in the conversation. And she's like, oh, no. You don't understand. We are a college prep school, and we have a 100% college acceptance rate. And then I will never forget what she said, Neeta. She said, because I don't remember much, but I remember the last thing she said. She said, I don't care what you do after high school, but you will apply to and get into at least one college. Wow. And it was like, oh, I was so naive. I was 17. I just thought you were supported by adults to pursue what was on your heart, or you felt like your gifts or whatever. And then I was like, no, they got it. This is the path that she and my school have all said. And a lot of people have this story of like, if you're a middle-class American in the late 90s, early 2000s, this is what you do to be successful and happy. And I was like, but what if my dream's different? And that wasn't given that option. And like, even my parents, and they love me, but they were like, I'm with your guidance counselor. I think she's got a bunch of good points. You should go to school And I'm not against school. That's not the point. But it was like one of those moments where I'm bumping up against, oh, you're not really counseling me to help me on my journey. That you're like, here is the one journey. I want everybody to go on this one journey so you can be fulfilled. But I don't think fulfillment comes from doing what everyone else is doing. I think fulfillment is a very personal thing. And I talk about this in the book that you really can't be fulfilled unless you know who you are. Because
Mm.
once you know who you are, then you're going to know how to define success, which is part of fulfillment. You're going to know how to define satisfaction, which is separate from success, but that's part of fulfillment. And you're going to know how to define service to other people, which is I think what we think we're wired for is to serve people.
Yeah.
And you need all three of those to be fulfilled. And
Mm.
your uniqueness is right in the white hot center of that.
Yeah, I mean, you talk a ton about uniqueness and I mean, just starting out with your story about, okay, going to high school and where so often we want to fit in, to belong. That is kind of that primary human driver. We want to fit in, we want to belong. And there is a risk that if you are going to be that rebel, you aren't going to be liked or you won't fit in that mold. How can we, and how do you teach people to embrace their uniqueness, their weird, and to own it? It sounds like in that sweet spot.
Yeah, that is the risk you take is, and this is why we don't rebel, right? We don't go our own path because it's safer to conform, it's safer to blend in, you'll be accepted. Our culture is a culture that says we celebrate diversity, but we really want everyone to act the same, think the same, be the same. And so it's like, if I push against this, I'm going to get judged. And that could be the culture, big capital C culture. That could be your microculture of my family. What are my parents going to think? I mean, your story too of like everyone knowing you as this dentist and you got this traditional path, and then like the path you're on now is nothing like what you were on before, and that shift, even probably your own subculture of the dental practice and other peers in that space, like, why are you leaving such a great gig? Well, you've got a great thing going, and you're like, I don't think this is for me. Maybe it was for me. And part of rebelling, and I talk about this in the book, is sometimes we're rebelling against the dreams we once had for ourselves. So maybe it's not even rebelling against other people's vision for our lives. It's our own previous vision because we've just changed a bit and we've
Ooh.
evolved a bit. And our dreams evolve sometimes too. And you have to give yourself the permission to stay in touch with, like, well, what is my dream now? And are you willing to risk rejection, judgment? It's hard. This is why nobody does this. It's just so much easier to play it safe. I felt that my whole life. I've pivoted so many times. And people are like, well, you're the musician guy. And now, why are you business coaching now? Well, you're the business coaching guy. Why are you writing books now? It's like they want, and I'm like, I don't know. You're actually making me question myself too, because I felt safer once I was in that box. So it is, I don't know if there's a good way to break the truth, but like you have to deal with the fact that people are going to judge you. And it's like, that's why people don't change until they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're willing to do it.
It's so true. It reminds me of, I mean, earlier this summer, I went to a family event. It was a family party, one of those things that you do. And there's these aunties and uncles that I hadn't seen in a very long time. And they're like, okay, what are you doing now? So you're not a dentist. And I'm like, this has been 8 years later and you're still
Yeah.
asking me this. I wrote a book. Just went through their head. I've written 4 books. No, just and I just stopped and I was like, you know what? That view of me for them, if it lands that way, who am I to change their perspective and their
Mm.
perception? And I think that is the big thing of being able to embrace that not everyone's going to be on your side, but you have to build that internal belief system, which I feel like the book is laid out beautifully in 8 chapters, and it's such a good read. It's such a quick read. It's short and sweet, which is why I love it, because I feel like you've organized this in a way where anybody can have it at any time. But specifically, chapter 5 really brought me kind of to this idea of, okay, when you're seeing the subculture of your family and people that you grew up with, people that can't really put you in a box because you either didn't go to this school or you didn't go to that college that you were supposed to go to, and everybody else went to those Ivies, or everyone else has like doctor, dentist, lawyer, engineer, whatever behind them. It's easy to say. And in chapter 5, you talk about how to reprogram your mind, and you have this process. So can you tell us about it? Because I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah. So, I so desperately want people to experience life change, but you can't really change your life until you deal with the old programming and the old code that's in there. Like we come out of the womb like natural dreamers, super creative, very intuitive with what we want as children, and then we quickly get programmed. This is not okay. This is not okay. And some things are like, yeah, don't touch a hot stove. Like we want to learn those things, but it goes past that to this is the way you should act, this is the way you should be, this is what you should desire. And sometimes it's explicit, sometimes it's implicitly implied of like, these are the things we should be pursuing. And so we've got years and baggage. And that's just if you had a normal childhood. If you have trauma, if you deal with some of the stuff that you've dealt with, Neeta, like hard stuff, is now you've got more baggage. That what it's doing is it's covering up the real you. And so we don't want to add new thoughts and frameworks to this old operating systems. We want to like undo the operating system so we are fresh on fresh code, and then we can rebuild up. So in that part of the process, like I have a 5-part process to become a rebel, to find yourself, and that's like the middle of it. You're in the part 3, and we're trying to break negative thoughts, habits, and patterns. And so we do something I call an inner story audit. This is pretty basic stuff, but it's intentional inner work that a lot of people won't do.
Mhm.
But the way I think about it is there's in any given moment, there's 2 voices in your head. There's the still small voice of intuition, right? If you're a person of faith, I believe God speaks to us, but like there's this guiding voice that wants to like lead you into life's best. Like that it knows what's ahead, you don't know, and it's there, but it's still and small and it's quiet. It's like a whisper. And then there's this loud default inner narrative, the inner story we tell ourselves, usually multiple stories. I'm not good enough. This won't ever work for me. I don't have the access to the resources that they have. I'm a failure, whatever it is. It can be one line, it can be multiple lines, but there's these inner stories we're telling ourselves, and they're so loud that we never hear the intuitive voice that's trying to guide us into like our unique path. And so what I try to do in this part of the process is help people understand that there is a story you're telling yourself, maybe multiples, and then challenge that story. There's a great simple question you can always ask yourself once you've identified, because most of us don't even know what story we're telling ourselves. So we have to almost think about the story we're telling ourselves, ask ourselves, what actions and habits am I taking that are reinforcing this story I'm telling myself? Who are the people in my life that are reinforcing this story? Not that we're going to try to axe them out of our life, but we want to identify when I'm around her or him, yeah, like we feed off each other, and that only keeps my story alive. And then you ask yourself the question, like, what could be, like, maybe this story is true. Maybe it's true that Graham is not good enough to be an author or whatever. Okay, maybe. But what could be as true, if not more true than that statement? And this is a question that just forces you to create some new neural pathways and just it'd be a little more curious because we're so like rigid in our thinking, and at least open up the possibility that maybe I could be a great author, maybe whatever the thing is. And then you just I walk you through 6 simple prompts just to journal out some of the stuff that's in your mind. So when you see it, you go, wow, do I really talk to myself that way? Do I really say those things to myself? And once you see it, you can attack it, dismantle it, at least quiet it enough to then start to hear that quieter, intuitive voice that wants to like say, hey, this might be fun over here. And it might be really like profitable in your business, or it might be really meaningful in your relationship. But if you're not quieted enough in your head, you're not going to hear that voice. So that's part of what we're doing with the reprogramming of the mind. It's not a one and done process. Like every day, you walk people through this stuff, and your podcast does a really good job of talking about these real issues that were these battles in the mind. But this is the hardest work, I think, but the most freeing work. Because then when we get to the fun stuff of life change and new thoughts and chasing those dreams and pursuing the vision, the best 3 years, all these things we talk about in the book, it's a lot easier when you undo all the bad programming.
Do you think it's something that people can do in just like one fell swoop, or it's something where it's like a dedication? Like I feel like this is like an hour a day or like 15 minutes a day or something like that, where it's kind of they have this intention of having to reprogram their mind, of course,
Oh yeah. I
creating
mean,
new
to me,
neural
it's a
pathways.
yeah. To me, it's an everyday thing. Just like I can't eat a salad and be healthy because I had a salad. I can't go to the gym, and I went to the gym that one time. So unfortunately, it's a daily act, but it's a muscle that you flex. And everyone has if you're an intentional person, so I don't want to say everyone, a lot of people have a morning routine. And I love the idea of a morning routine because the morning is the only part of your day. The start is the only part of the day you can control. I don't know everything could just fall apart once, especially if you have kids. Like there's so many variables, right? But I can maybe control when I wake up and what I do first, even if it's only for 15 minutes. And that window of time, whatever you have in the morning, it really matters what you do with that time. And it's the best opportunity to feed yourself faith and destroy fear. It's really a great opportunity to get rooted back into your intentions for your life, like the vision you're crafting. Like, I can't control everything, but I can really review the things. Like, I know I struggle with this belief, but I know I want to press into this belief. And it's just a daily act of starting from not negative. We wake up, you just start negative. We're already anxious, we're already exhausted, we're already overwhelmed. So it gets you back to at least a neutral point where you can attack the day. So yeah, I don't think it's a one and done, but I think the first time someone does this exercise, goes through these 6 questions, you might go from 100% down to like only 20% left of like negative thought, because you could obliterate a lot of it once you just see it. And then we're probably going to have our thorn in the side for all of us that we deal with for a long, long time. And that's okay. We can at least minimize it.
I want to actually draw into one of the quotes in your book. The frustrations with life come when we are trying to live out of alignment with our design. So is there a time when you were living out of alignment, and what kind of brought you back? Because I think this is a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah, this is the heartbeat of the book, right? Is for me, I wanted to be a musician, professional musician, tried hard. I ended up going to college because my parents forced me to. They're like, you're going to go. We actually think your guidance counselor is right. So I said, well, fine. If I go, I'm going to study audio engineering and music industry so I can just hang out in a recording studio all day while I make my album and get a producer out of Nashville and session players and secretly shop this thing out. So by the time I graduate college, I'll have a record deal. That was the plan. I was engaged to be married to my wife, Shay, at the time. And so I'm like, this will be great. I'm going to get a record deal. We'll get some advance money. We can at least pursue this thing. I don't know how well it'll turn out, but we'll at least have a shot at it. I started to hear back from all the labels, and it was like, no, not interested. Nothing original here. The only thing I was offered was a development deal, which is like, we like you enough to sign you, but not enough to pay you. And we'll sort of watch your career unfold. I'm like, that to me is pointless. Like I can already do this on my own with no money. And I had to make a choice. Do I keep pursuing music and drag my new wife into a life of no money, or do I give it up and get a job? And so, because she was still finishing up college. So I gave up the dream to get a job, and I sold radio advertising at Country KCY in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And it was awful. I sat at a beige cubicle with an oversized button-down shirt and a goofy tie. It's like the literal opposite
Not
of
you.
being a rock star, not me. I was like, this is awful. And then I sold jewelry at a jewelry store. And then I was at a software company that taught foreign language. It was like bouncing around for 4 years with random jobs. And I'm responsible enough of a human to do what I have to do and take care of my wife. I don't think I made the wrong choice, but it taught me something for 4 years of like, I'm doing the right thing, quote unquote, but I hate this. And I'm not a hard worker. I'm not crushing it. Everyone else is getting promoted because I'm not pouring myself into these jobs. I don't care about these jobs. So that was the path I was on for 4 years, but I probably would have stayed on that path if it weren't for the global recession. 2009, we moved to Tampa, Florida, where we are now. I lost 2 jobs in 10 months right after buying our first house and having our first daughter, Chloe. And then we were on food stamps for 18 months. And I'm like, 26, what am I doing in my life? I'm not a rock star. I can't even hold down a job. And I have 3 mouths to feed and a mortgage. And I had to do some serious soul searching, like something isn't working. And so I decided to try. I didn't know if this was going to work, but I decided to try, instead of going and getting another job, which is what everybody wanted me to do. Have you got another job yet? My in-laws for a couple of years still were like, did you get a job yet? It's been 15 years. I haven't had a job since, but no, I haven't got a job. But I was like, what if I could make a living doing what I'm wired to do? So maybe the rock star thing didn't work out, but that was my dream that died. And this is something I talk about in the book, the identity crisis intersection. It's that moment when you've had a dream, we've all had a dream that dies, relationship dream, financial dream, a career dream. What do you do next? You're at an intersection that I call the identity crisis intersection, because when your dream dies, part of you dies with it. That's why it hurts so bad. And you're faced with a choice, and you could either choose to go left, which is to conform, go just be like everybody else and say, that was a dumb dream. I'm embarrassed that that didn't happen. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to expose my heart that way again for whatever it is I want. And that's what I did for 4 years, but it doesn't work. It doesn't lead to happiness. So that's I struggled for 4 years. But then when I lost my job again, I'm like, this isn't working. I'm going to make the other choice, which is I could choose to dream again.
Mm.
And that could mean I could pursue the rock star dream again. It could mean I could dream a different version of my dream or a totally different dream entirely. Like there's no rules here. So I decided to dream a slightly different version of the dream, which was, hey, could I still make a living in music? Could I use my skills to produce music, to be a freelance provider and record other people's music and then get paid? And then I would have enough money to make my music in the spare time. And I could promote that and I could go on tour or I could do digital stuff with Spotify or YouTube. And I created a YouTube channel and all this stuff thinking I'd be a freelancer, but that turned into a content business. And like it all just, you iterate and you discover things, but it all came from a decision to say, I'm so frustrated
Mm.
because I've been operating way out of alignment with the way Graham is designed. Graham is not made to sit at a desk. And Graham's not even made to be like the quiet person in the office. Graham's meant to be in front. Like I'm a performer.
Yeah.
But I was frustrated, but my version of the dream didn't work out. But I didn't realize that God had a bigger vision. He's like, bro, there's lots of ways to use your skills, your interests, your personality. But YouTube didn't exist when I was growing up. So I would never have thought about being a content creator, a podcaster, an author. So it's like, get creative about who you are because then you can live in alignment with it. But which is the whole point of the book is people are like, great, Graham, that sounds great. I want to be a rebel, but I don't know who I am. I don't know how. And so that's what we're
I
trying to
don't know
help you
how.
find yourself. Yeah. And it's a how book. It's a little bit of what, but it's mostly how because people need the help. So it is a coaching session. It is the 5-part framework. It starts with dreaming, but this is the whole point is once you know yourself, then the way you do relationship, you're going to be more fulfilled. The way you do work and career, you're going to be more fulfilled. The way you think about money, you're going to be more fulfilled because it's out of the way you and your friend group, your family, your spouse is aligned, whoever you're doing this with. And that's the problem I'm trying to solve is get people out of the misalignment and into alignment.
Yeah, and I love that story. I mean, it's so fresh for so many people because the fact that, and I want to just double click on even those few years where you had your new wife, you had your daughter, you had just purchased a house, and you're bouncing from job to job. But what were those skill sets that you were actually starting to realize during that time that compounded? Then when you hit the proverbial rock bottom moment, you're like, oh, okay, I'm actually resourceful in all of this. And that's what builds our resilience. We talk a lot
Yeah.
about resilience and being brave, but to be brave to go inward, which is obviously what chapter 5 is about. But then specifically during that time, because I feel like there's so many people who hit these rock bottom moments that either ignite them in some
Mm.
ways, kind of like yourself, or they start they sit in the suck and they can't get out. What was that for you?
I mean, when you have the pressure to make something happen, that is a powerful ally. So when my wife is taking care of her newborn baby and we have no money, well, that pressure was what I needed. I don't think I would have gotten creative and started a business. I didn't want to start a business. I'm like, I didn't know a single entrepreneur. That was never something I wanted to do. So it wasn't like, oh, my dream to start a business. I can finally pursue that. That was never it. I'm too scared, way too scared to start a business, way too scared to do something like that. It was because my back was against the wall. And it's like, well, you have to find a way to make a living. And I had two choices either go get a job, which I knew what that was going to look like. 4 years of, I already did that, or find something else, make something work. And it was 2009, and there were these things called bloggers that had been around, and I knew they were making money. And I was like, there's got to be a way. They're doing it. I'm not dumb. There's got to be a way to figure out what they're doing. And maybe I could have a version of that. And so for me, it was pressure to try something new, to take a risk. And I'm grateful. I say I'm always grateful for the global recession. Like, and I know a lot of people are scared right now of what's happening or what might happen. And I think a lot of the fear is just overblown. It's like it was really bad in 2007, 8, and 9. Like it was crazy. And people were losing jobs left and right and their homes, and like the world economy was, break. It was crazy. If that's when so many businesses like the Airbnbs of the world, like my business started, like a lot of people started things because they had to. And I think that's beautiful. When there's a major life change for you, like Neeta, I mean, when you came on my show and I got to hear more of your story, I was like, here's a woman who's gone through so much that propelled her to do something different. You are the way you are because of the suck that you dealt with and you wrote about in your book. And it's like, I know it's so painful for you, but I can't imagine you would rewrite the story in a major broad strokes because you wouldn't be the woman you are today. You wouldn't have the resilience you have today. And there's something about like sometimes we need a hard situation to squeeze the good out of us. And I think a lot of people are in a squeezing season right now. And I just think flip the script, like think about what good juice could come out of this instead of the pain of the squeeze. What good can come out of this? And are you willing to be creative? And there's people that want to help you. There's resources that are available. We are in a really creative world right now where there's more opportunity to leverage your random experience and knowledge that you think nobody cares about. Like my first whole book is about like monetizing your knowledge and experience, but it's actually a really beautiful time to feel that pressure of change. And if you're in it, like don't fight it. Like this is an opportunity to get curious about what kind of value you can add to the world in a lot of different ways in your relationships, in your career, in your home. I feel like for me, Neeta, I had to learn to give up the identity that I labeled myself with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Like I had to give myself freedom to say like, hey, there's more to you. Are not that one thing. That is a part of who you are. You're so much broader than that. So think more creatively and be more open-minded.
Yeah, and gone are the days where we have to be slaving behind a desk for 30 years, or like my mom, who was an accountant, and that was kind of what she did until, she ventured out and did other things. And so many people in my family, they're, either they're nurses and or they're in the medical field. And it's kind of like you have those golden handcuffs. And then they parlay that dream to their kids. But this is, as you said, and you're the king of the industry when we're talking about people who have pivoted and reinvented and used their creativity to actually leverage their greatest gifts and been able to create a lucrative career and several streams of income as a result. And this kind of takes me to the next chapter in your book. You already kind of alluded to it. When you have that identity crisis intersection, how can we start to, and somebody has, they're in that intersection right now, how can we start to take them into a path where they can, because you say dreaming is the most rebellious thing you can do. Can you talk more into that?
Yeah, I think people don't want you to dream. It's kind of weird. I think people, when you start to dream, it like offends them, or it bumps up against their maybe choices, or maybe just their dream died and it's out of their control. And so they did what I did, which was, hey, I had a dream once. Yeah, I had a dream, Graham. Yeah, I was like you. I dreamt. I had big dreams, but it didn't work out for me. And so they have this sort of cynical take. And so if you start to get excited about something and you share it with somebody, it's a very vulnerable, tender thing to share your dream. Like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business, or I'm thinking about moving my family across the world, or I'm thinking about homeschooling my kids, or I'm thinking about putting them back into school from homeschool. Like whatever it is you're thinking about, someone's going to judge it hard and they're not going to like your dream because it's going to offend them in some way. So it's very tender. So I think you're just in a world where very few people are going to be like, man, tell me more about that dream. That's awesome. How can I support you in that? Even if it's just to encourage you, or like I don't know very many people that think like that, because we have just a really sad, cynical world. But this is the way we're wired, is to dream. Like kids, like you've got kids, like they're so curious, and like anything's possible to them. And we all think like that's naivete, right? Where they're naive, and then you become an adult and you realize that's not the way the world works. What if it's the opposite? What if that's the way the world actually is anything is possible? We just choose to then limit our scope of what's possible, and we choose to limit our pursuits and our ambitions and our goals because we just got hurt.
Yeah.
Or someone else said it didn't work for them, and therefore they projected on us. And so This is like, it's the most rebellious thing you could do is to be a dreamer in these days because no one is, and everyone's given up on it. And so what I try to do, and this is the first part of the process, the first part of knowing yourself is getting back to what you dream about. And
Mm,
so we take people through a 50 dreams exercise, and for some people this is the hardest thing they will do in their month, because and this is me years ago when I did this, they've shut off that part of them. It's almost like I was taught, hey, don't be selfish. Like, serve other people, focus on other people, put their needs above your own. Okay? It's not a bad thing to want to serve people. I think we have a world full of very self-centered people that think the world revolves around them. So I think there was some value in that. But what I did was I leaned so hard into that,
mm,
and especially when my dream died, I was like, okay, I didn't get my rock star dream. People are telling me to focus on other people and serve them. I'm going to maybe, I guess, craft a narrative to fit my circumstances, to make sense of my circumstances. And that's what I did. Was maybe you don't dream. You don't get your dream. It's foolish to dream. And I've learned, no, I was absolutely wrong. It's actually not foolish. It's foundational to who you are.
yeah.
It's the only way to get back to who you are. And so it might be hard for people, if you're like me, to start to write down 50 things you want, 50 things you would dream of doing, being, or having. I love Tim Ferriss's question because it's helpful. It's like, if you were the smartest person in the world and it were impossible to fail, what would you dream of doing, being, or having? It's like, oh, to let myself actually honestly answer that question and write those things down. Sometimes I thought about things that I want to write down and then I don't write them down, which is so dumb because it's like,
Mm,
I already know it's a desire I have, but I just am afraid to stare at it in the face. Maybe because I'm afraid that it's wrong to want that. Maybe it's because I'm afraid if I write it down, I'll be accountable to that dream, and
mm,
it's easier to not dream it because I'm afraid I won't get it. I mean, I think there's a lot of pain when it comes to dreams, and so this is why we start there. But the beautiful thing about dreaming is not to necessarily create a list of 50 things you're going to go on your bucket list and now I want to go make all these things happen. That's not the whole point at all. The point of doing this dreaming is to get data, get intel on
mm,
yourself.
mhm,
Dreams are data points. Dreams are clues. That's all they are. You don't have to pursue them necessarily, but they tell you a lot about yourself and what you value, how you're wired, and that gives you so much more clarity to then what should my vision for my life look like. So we go from dreams to vision to then mindset to then action. You sort of have this beautiful path forward in the book. But yeah, that's why I say dreaming is rebellious, because it's a world that's not really set up for dreamers.
yeah.
And if you're a dreamer like me, and like most of us are originally, it gets beat out of you pretty quick.
Oh, totally. And on page 63, I just love this quote so much. Many of us have become so good at suppressing our desires that we aren't even aware of certain core wants that have been lingering under the surface for years. And I feel like, you're giving people this opportunity. This is kind of like part journal, part book, and it's
Yep.
it's it's small so you can put it in your purse. I love that about this book. And yeah, talk to us about what you've seen, because you also have a pretty robust community where you're also guiding people and coaching people as well. And they come into this ecosystem and they're curious about this. What is it that you're also giving them as a result of kind of doing what's in the book?
My experience with people, let's take some clients. I'll have like business coaching clients, and they think they are hiring me or coming into my world to grow their business.
Mhm.
And so I'll say, hey, why are we working together? What is it you want? I have one guy in particular that pops in mind. I want to make $100,000 a month in my business. Okay, great goal. Before we talk about that, why don't you go do some of this work, like some of the stuff I have in this book, like the dreaming exercise, and there's one, the best 3 years of your life framework, which I have all my clients go through, and it's in the book. He went and did those exercises, and he came back a week later, and I said, well, what came up for you? What was the most interesting thing after doing those journal prompts? He said, bro, I realized that what I really want out of life has nothing to do with $100,000 a month. I realize I want to leave Tennessee and move to Florida. I don't want to live closer to the beach, so much so that like my wife and I could go for a walk or a bike ride on the beach every day. I want to be able to have my wife work with me in the business so that we can like homeschool the kids and all be at home together with the business and the school. Like, I just want to have more time on my 4 kids and my wife. I want to replace a vehicle that's very old that I really hate and I need a new car. And I realized that I already make enough money in my current life and business to do those things now. I just need to do it. So I'm going to put my house on the market and we're going to just sell this thing and just make it happen. And they did. They moved to the 30A area, Panhandle of Florida. Like it was like so mind blowing that like he doesn't actually need me to help him grow his business, the thing he thought he wanted or thought he should want. And it's not a bad thing to want, but it's like he'd never slowed down to say, what do I really want? And what does that mean? And what does that look like on the ground level? So I feel like that's my mission, is to help people not just get what they even think they want, but help them like look deeper. What do you really value? Because you're different than me. We could even both dream the same dream of like, I want to be an author. Like Neeta, you and I could both say, and we both are authors, but like, I want to be an author. But what that dream looks like specifically for you could be very different than for me.
True.
And like you're even joking about, your husband was saying like, you do more books, what's on the back end of the books, and thinking like a strategic business guy that he is and a marketer. I know some friends that are authors that don't want to sell anything else. They just want to sell the book and they just want to podcast and write books. And that's, to them, that's their vision. And that's okay if that's all you want. And there's other people that only write books as giant like business cards for their coaching. Like they think about writing books totally differently. So that's why we got to get really clear on what do you want. And I don't think we've slowed down, quieted enough to even ask ourselves. Like, I don't even know if I know what I want, Neeta, in the next 12 months. I think I do, but the more time I do this work for myself, the more honest I can get. Then I can actually start to ignore all the other things that I think I should be doing and focus on the things that are really meant for me and the people that are close to me.
This kind of brings me to all of the things that we see on social media these days that are kind of geared towards younger people, of like, all right, you need to do steps X, Y, and Z to get to 7 figures really fast, to have the fancy car, to have all of the things. And what I'm hearing you say is like, actually, no, do you even know why you want the 7 figures? Like, why do you want, what are you going to do with that? What exactly have you thought about what you're going to do? So can you break it down for young people maybe listening to this as to how to go about thinking about that, or even those who look at that and then they're like, ooh, doing things that I love, that's not really for me, because everyone always talks about it's got to be 7 figures or more, right? So what do you say to those people who even get turned off about dreaming because it's like, oh, like, what if my dreams aren't big enough?
Oh, yeah, man, there's an interesting movement of like, you got to dream bigger, got to dream bigger. And I like what they're trying to say, I think, and if they're being altruistic in that, is they're trying to help you to imagine there's more that could be possible. We're so small-minded. So I do think there's something powerful about the magic, like the book, The Magic of Dreaming Big is a great read, and there's some power in that. But I do think there's this weird thing of like, oh, my dream is too small, I need to shoot for more. And dude, that's the trap of being human, is we always want more. And so, and that never ends, right? That never ends. You never feel like you have enough money, enough fame, enough affirmation. If you're like a words of affirmation, love language person like me, I can never have enough. Like everyone on the planet could say, you're amazing, Graham, and we love you. And like tomorrow I'm going to be empty again and need more. I'm going to need the whole universe to tell me, like, it's never enough. So when are you going to get off the more treadmill? The more money, the more fame, the more likes on your posts, the more, like, only you can decide to get off that treadmill. So that's why what's helpful to get off that treadmill is to know what you really want. So the more clear you know what matters to you, and then you craft a vision for what that looks like specifically, like day to day, month to month, that can become a North Star for you. So for example, I'm around a lot of business owners that are like, hey, here's how you do 8 figures a year, AKA 10 million or more. Here's how you do 9 figures, 100 million or more. I'm like, okay, well, how do you do that? And they tell me, well, you need a team of 50 people, a team of 100 people. You need to be spending at least 3 million a month on ads. You need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. And I'm like, dude, that sounds awful. Like, my personality would hate all of that. I don't want to manage people. I don't want to have a really high expense business because that just stresses me out. You can tell me till I'm blue in the face that it shouldn't stress me out as long as I'm making more than I'm spending. It doesn't matter. But if I'm on the hook for 3 million a month just for the ad spend, that I won't sleep well at night. So I just reject. And if that's what it takes, then I don't want that, because actually I know what I want. I know that I want to be able to do work that matters to me I love helping people. I want to live a certain lifestyle. Okay, how much does that cost? I want to be able to be free to like shut it down for a month and like disappear for a month if I want to. If my business can't give me all those things, like it's the wrong business, even if it's making more money. So I have to just get clear on what I want. And I think to your point, people today don't feel like they're allowed to want what they want in this weird sense. So like, okay, if I want to be successful, who are the successful people? Not a bad question to ask. What are they doing? Not a bad question to ask. I guess I should do that. Bad assumption. Bad assumption. You're making a huge leap from that worked for them to that's what's going to work for you. We don't actually know if it's working for them. I know a lot of YouTubers and a lot of big people on social media who behind closed doors are stressed out of their mind, and they have a high revenue business, but not a high profit business. They're making maybe 20 million a year in their business, but taking home less than 500,000 a year, which maybe that's not a bad thing, but you can make a lot more than that without the stress. So we don't know if it's working for them. And there's a lot of liars out there, but let's just assume, yes, it's working for them. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you. That doesn't mean you're going to like it. That doesn't mean it's good for your family or your season of life. No one talks about seasons. What season are you in? You have young kids. Is this a season to do all the stuff out on the road all the time away from your young kids? Probably not, because you'll miss those sweet, sweet years with them. I love speaking. I love being on stages, but I limit how much I'm going to travel and speak till my kids are out of the house, because I don't need to for my business. But B, I don't want to give up these years with them. Once they're out on their own, Shay and I will probably do way more traveling, and I'll speak way more often because we like to travel together. Fine, but I gotta know the season I'm in. So all that to say is, there's actually a lot of ways to be successful,
Yeah,
but
I love.
people don't talk about it.
And I love you're talking about seasons because we have a lot of mamas that are in the community on the show, even. And the question that I get a lot, and, I think this is great because we're talking about rebel, but that there are seasons. And I think this, and I felt it too, like the guilt of, oh my gosh, I want to build this thing. I want to build this thing, or I have this desire and this ambition, and yet I have really small children. And how do you, like, how do we even balance that? And we forget that there are seasons and stages to life and business. And you and your wife you were in my shoes at one point.
Yep.
And how was that dynamic for you both as a couple? And how did that impact you guys at all in terms of raising your daughters the way you did? And of course, now there's a little bit more freedom since they're teenagers.
Sure.
And how can you speak to maybe some of the mamas who kind of beat themselves up because they're like, I know I meant for more, but I don't know. And then, when I get back into the workforce, I'm not like lauded as anything. And I feel like this book could be for them because this gives you a whole opportunity to rediscover what you can actually do. And segueing into another question, as a mom, what are maybe your top 3 favorite ideas or business ideas that you can give the moms in the room?
Oh yeah. Well, let's do it in reverse. So best business things you could do, especially as a mom, coaching. It's amazing. Everyone listening to this right now, you have something that's valuable to somebody else. Rory Vaden has the best quote on this to figure out what you're meant to do. You are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. So if you think I have no value, just think about who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Have you gotten through a health journey? Have you figured out how to put your kids to sleep? There's whole businesses built around help sleep training your child. Like if you figured that part out, there's other moms that are sleep deprived that would love to learn how did you get your kid to sleep. You can build an entire coaching brand around that, which only has to involve some Zoom calls that you can do from your house whenever you want. And there's people that will pay you for a 3-month coaching package just to jump on a call every week or every other week and walk them through their problems and their solutions. You don't have to have any course or curriculum. You don't have to have a YouTube channel yet. At its base, bare bones, you could just put out on any platform you have, hey, if you're a mom who's looking to help their kids fall asleep and you're struggling with that, DM me and I'd love to jump on a call, see if I can help you. And then just jump on a free call with them and see what their problem is. See if you could actually help them. and then pitch them a coaching package and make up a price and just test it out. It's the easiest business model in the sense that no startup costs, no commitments if you don't like it, and you're just connecting with cool people, finding out what their problem is and seeing if you can help them. And you can make a living doing this. All my clients are in so random niches. I have a client who helps native Japanese speakers work on their English pronunciation. She doesn't help them speak English. She helps them work on their accent. And she's built a $30,000 a month coaching business. And she just did it on a whim. Like, well, I feel like I'm good at pronouncing English better as a native Japanese speaker myself, and I can kind of know what people are doing wrong. It's just so random. She helped one business guy who's doing more international business, like help me get rid of my accent, and she's turned it into a whole business. So that's the best business you can be in. It's easy, it's fun. Affiliate marketing is really powerful. It's just a fancy way of saying share the products you like and use a referral link where if they buy it, you get a cut. I make a lot of money with affiliate marketing. You could do this through Amazon. You could do this with Like to Know It. There's lots of things on Instagram that'll directly click, and you just be genuine and be like, hey, these are my favorite jeans right now. Hey, these are my favorite whatever. And people click on it and they buy it. Those two come to mind as the easiest. But then I love YouTube, and I love it because you can start a community, even if no one's following you at the beginning, which is great because then you can go ugly early because no one's following you at the beginning. You can just try things. But just start to share the stuff you would share with a one-on-one coaching, like whatever it is, just share, put it out there. And it's so sticky, and all your effort put into YouTube will pay off in the future because those videos last forever and cycle forever. They don't disappear like social media posts. They last forever, and they come up with search all the time. And you could start to build a following on a platform like YouTube. And at that point, once people are watching your videos, whatever you're talking about, then you can monetize in a million different ways. You could sell a course, you could do coaching, you could do an event, you could do affiliate marketing, but you don't have to commit to something big, and all of those can be done remote. I have my first book, How to Get Paid for What You Know, kind of walks through all of this if you want like a step-by-step program, but
We'll link that in the show notes as well.
it's never been a better time to I have to make money. I only have 7 hours a week at random hours of the day, and I have to do it from home. Welcome to the best time in the world to be alive if that's your problem. It's easier than ever. And the tech stack is so much easier. They do it for you. It's like I used to have to figure out how to code stuff, and I don't like that stuff at all. So a lot of options there for you. I'm happy to noodle on that with you guys at some point. But I would just say this is where you have to stop looking what everyone else is doing. My wife, she's a very successful stock visual company, images, video. It's called Elevate. And it's if you need images and stock video for your socials or whatever, it's incredible. It's a subscription product. But she started as a commercial photographer with clients, but she felt, because she only limited her, we capped her work hours to, at one point it was 1 day a week, and then at most it was 2 days a week. So 16 hours is the most she's ever worked in a week, because we needed her to take care of our kids, and we kind of swapped. I'll take care of them, you take care of them. We just figured out whatever it was. We both have had limited work hours. The most I've ever worked is 32 hours a week, and now it's down to 5. And then the most she's ever worked is 16, and now she's got a partner in the company and some other people helping her. So we always felt limited. And so the thing we decided to do was be at peace with the fact that we're going to grow slower than everybody else. And all her competitors were young, single women doing the same thing she was doing, probably the same age, but she was married young, had kids young. And so their season allowed them to work all day, every day, which meant they could roll out things faster, they could iterate faster, they could jump on trends faster. And she hated it. She's like, I know what they're doing, but I just don't have the hours to give it because of our other commitments. And we just decided to make peace with the fact that someone else might grow faster. But you know what's funny is a lot of those same people either burned out because there wasn't a sustainable model. Even if you're single and childless, it's not sustainable for any human to work all the time. 2, they decided fancy that. They wanted to get married. They wanted to have kids. They wanted to have these other wonderful parts of their life. And then, oh man, now I'm having to slow down. And they're like, and now they're all pro sustainable business model because they have to be. And I'm like, welcome to the club. My wife and I just got there earlier than everybody else because we started young. We met each other young, got married young. It just was the way our story fell. But I'm grateful for it because we never got that chance to hustle. We never got that chance to be the shooting star. My business was a very slow build. But now I'm like, man, I'm so glad it wasn't a shooting star because I didn't burn out. I didn't burn out just as quickly. I have a sustainable business, and I've pivoted and evolved and started second businesses, and they've all been sustainable because I had to be. So I actually think the seasonality is something you embrace. And then if you have a season where the kids are out of the house or you have more flexibility in your schedule, then iterate, evolve, and let yourself do that. But just stop watching other people that are just in a different season than you. They have different boundaries than you have. Just accept your boundaries, love your boundaries, and create within them.
This is huge. This is huge. And we're also going to link our episode in the show notes because, Graham, I feel like we can keep talking forever, and you are so golden and so many mic drop moments. And this book, who is this book for? Who is that rebel?
So the marketer in me hates to say that this book is for everyone because you're not supposed to say that, and it's not supposed to be true. But I really believe this is maybe it's the one book I'll ever write that's truly for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's ever had a dream die, anyone who's ever felt stuck, unfulfilled, or they just have that loose, vague sense of there's something more. You said it, like I'm made for more. I feel like I want to do more, be a part of more, see more, experience more, and they don't know how to get there. This book is for you. And if you're exhausted with the way everyone else is telling you to do it, this book will not tell you how to do it. It'll tell you how to find out how you should do it for yourself, because your path is going to be different than mine. And so I think it's going to give you the freedom to chart your own path, and it's going to give you tools to do it. It's a coaching session in a book. It's not just a bunch of nice ideas. It's not just a bunch of blog posts slapped together. It's literally read this chapter that's very short, do this exercise, come back, read this chapter, do this exercise. And by the end of it, you're going to know yourself better than 99% of the planet. And then from there, I think everything's going to become a lot more clear.
Yeah. Well, and I love this so much. You've inspired me because, guys, this is so doable, and it's so readable. This is kind of like something that you can keep on your nightstand because it's so succinct. And I mean, that's who you are. Like the advice that you give, it's just like, whoa, okay, I need to write, I need to take notes. And for those of you watching this on YouTube or listening to this, you probably want to replay this on YouTube so you can actually take notes. Okay, Graham, where can we find the book? And I know you have some amazing bonuses for us. Where can we get it all?
Yep, therebelbook.com. And depending on when this episode's out, if it's already out, September 3rd is the drop date. You can go pick up the book there or any outlet you want to buy the book, but take your receipt to therebelbook.com. I got a bunch of bonuses for you there as well. And you can hang out with me on Instagram at the Graham Cochran, or it's the Graham Cochran Show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, and your show is just fire. So fire. I feel like I come away with so many different nuggets every week. So I feel like everyone.
Well, your episode was one of my favorites. It was a great conversation. So everyone should go check out that one for sure.
Yeah, it was so good. So good. Okay, we get into this igniting round before I let you go. So you can answer it as long as you want, as short as you want. Your favorite morning routine currently?
Oh, it's funny you ask. It's in the book. I call it my WAIT morning method. It's an acronym, like WAIT. Before you go and start your day, WAIT, WAIT.
Okay.
Wisdom, affirmations, imagination, thankfulness. So I read something ancient. I don't like to read, like even my own book. Hopefully it's got some wisdom in it, but it's modern. Like I'm a product of my generation. Read something that's 1,000 years old or older. I read the Bible, read Proverbs, read the Stoics, something that's like different time, different culture. It gets you out of the modern way of thinking. So I read some wisdom. Affirmations for me, when I think of that word, I mean, I write down the things that I know are true about me. So if I'm living in doubt, like, hey, no, you are contributing to the world. You are an author that's making a big difference. You are a coach that's making a difference. Sometimes I'll write down specific things I know I've done and accomplished. It's like I'm pumping myself up. And then if it's something that I'm in process of, like when I was trying to get a TED Talk, land in my TED Talk, I was like, I am a TEDx speaker. I know I am. I just haven't gotten an event to accept my applications yet. And 70 applications later, we got an event to say, yes, come speak. So I'll write down some affirmations, remind myself of what's true and what I know will be true soon. Imagination is just pre-experiencing the day. If there's something coming up, like a speaking event or a hard conversation with a team member, or it's like with this book, I would imagine the book on shelves in Barnes & Noble. I would imagine Oprah holding it up on her show. And it's amazing how I got the idea for the subtitle, the cover, all of it, just in moments of silent, like, imagination and just enjoying myself looking at the book. Like, what does it look like? It all came to me in that period of imagination. And I love that because it allows you to see things from different angles. Albert Einstein famously said that imagination is more important than knowledge. because knowledge is limited to all we can know or will ever know in the world, but imagination is broader than that. It's an interesting thought. So I do a little bit of that, 5 minutes or 10 minutes in silence, and then gratitude, thankfulness, to make it spell a word, wait, thankfulness. And I write down 10 things I'm grateful for every 24 hours.
Oh, every 24 hours? Okay, we
Yep.
do this thing in our house at the dinner table. 3 big wins of the day. So
Yeah, I love that.
yeah. And now my 3-year-old is like, my hair, my crayons,
Come
my
on now.
coloring book. So I'm like,
That's so
okay,
good.
yes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So awesome. And one word that describes this season of life.
Exciting.
Mm.
Yeah. Just, I
Amazing.
love, it's funny how years ago I said, I don't want life to be boring. And then life became not boring and very exciting. I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. This is a lot. And I feel like God's saying, isn't that what you wanted? You wanted a non-boring life. So embrace it as exciting. It's a lot at times, but it's been an exciting season. Lots been happening and a lot's to come. So I'm excited.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations. I think everybody go run right now, get the book, Rebel, the rebelbook.com, correct?
You got it.
Therebelbook.com. Go follow Graham at Graham Cochran. Add his YouTube show to your weekly list. Thank you so much, Graham. It's such a pleasure always. Oh my goodness. Give me a big hug and grab this book.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time on the Brave Table. All right, welcome back to the other side. I'm so excited. He's such a great human and such a great person to learn from. So if you got curious about perhaps maybe starting that side gig, or maybe you are a mama and you are embracing the season of life, or maybe you have the itch to do something that is completely outside of your comfort zone, because you are wanting to live a life that is on your terms and you want more support in it, I can't think of a better human that teaches not only business, but marketing and also honing in on your gifts. He's one of the top business coaches that I know. And I will link his episode of He and I on the Graham Cochran show, which is actually on YouTube and wherever you get your shows, as well as go ahead to the rebelbook.com, grab this puppy, grab it for a friend, a family member, someone that needs to have more rebellion in their life. But also for those who are trying to find themselves without following the crowd. There's something, the sweet spot that we all have to kind of recognize for ourselves. Who are we living for? What may work for somebody else may not work for you. What may work for you might not work for somebody else. And I think that one of the biggest parts is in this episode today is let's dream again. Let's dream a different dream. And I can't leave on that note enough. So go ahead, grab this book. And if you haven't already, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you haven't shared, please share this episode with somebody that you love, somebody that could use a little bit more bravery to be a rebel in their lives. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow the show more than you know. If you are listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, if you can click the follow or the like button, that would be amazing. And tell us what you loved so much in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Don't forget to be just a little bit more brave in your actions, in your life. And have an amazing day, week, and I will see you soon.